good afternoon, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us for 40 minutes of your time. I know everybody's got a really packed schedule here in Hamburg, but it's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces here as we spend the next 40 minutes or so talking about design and customer-centric design in this new and changing world. I'm really delighted to be here with my co-host, Ander Howe, from completely gone out of my...
travel experience.
Sorry?
In-air travel experience.
In-air travel experience. Apologies. And with my great panelists here, we've got Louise, Leo Pepe. Did I do well? Excellent. From Riyadh Air, Amy James from British Airways, and Luke Miles from New Territory Design. So a round of applause for them. Thank you. For those who don't know me, I'm Simon Soni. I'm a strategic advisor and change maker, currently working with British Airways, having spent a career working across a number of different airlines. So this is an area of work which is really passionate. I'm really passionate about being able to design with the customer in mind. So how we do that in a changing world is really, really important to me. And I think a really good place for us to start is when we look at why. Why should we be having this conversation now? Why is it important? And got to give some thanks to Simon Sinek, as this is a good place to start, but it's always a good idea to start with why in mind. And when we look at what IATA is saying that business travel has pretty much stabilized now at 80% of the 2019 levels. We've got to a place where leisure travel, and especially premium leisure travel, is growing at least 10% a year. And we've got a changing mix of customers. We've got a younger, more ethnically diverse mix and a more female mix of customers on board. So if things are changing and the world has changed, we probably need to think quite differently. The expectations of those customers are also changing. They are much more focused on sustainability. They're much more looking at technology and wanting to have flexibility in the different solutions they have and personalization. Health and wellness is really, really important for them, as is experiential travel. And all of these things, they're also expecting excellent value. And that's something that we need to keep in mind. Value is top. Everybody knows there's a cost of living crisis. How do we actually generate all of this capability and these new products while keeping that value in mind? And those are all things that are issues in the broader society and things that are affecting all of us every day. So that this is nothing new, but we do need to take it into account. And the shift has sparked some changes to the ways that airlines are already starting to move their products. If you look at, for example, the development of end-to-end travel apps, if you look at what Delta Airlines have created, what AirAsia have created in terms of an end-to-end app experience, that is something that is really interesting to see how they're doing. And also how not just the growth of premium economy cabins, but also, if you like, pseudo cabins within cabins. So if you think of the main cabin extra from American Airlines or extended economy from WestJet, these are, if you like, new offerings within a cabin that are there to try and provide more options for the customers. And it's something that we need to be thinking about as to how we do that. We're also seeing the rise of experiences. And if you see what the hotel companies are doing, they're packaging experiences together, business and leisure packages, night tourism packages. Go and see the Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert with your accommodation included as well, and might be one of the few ways to get tickets. There's a number of different ways that we can do this. So the question ultimately is, how do we stay ahead? And this is going to be a topic of conversation that we have with the panel. There is a risk of spreading our resources far too thinly, and we've also had significant changes in the industry. Coming out of the pandemic, there are a lot of new faces in the industry, which is really positive for the future. We've got to find a way of making sure that we think differently, that we actually understand what we don't know, because that's very, very important, just as much or just as important as what we do know, but knowing what we don't know is equally as important. So I would say that we need to bear in mind that we have a clear purpose. Why are we doing something? What are we doing it? How? Where are we trying to get to? That we're looking to leverage data and AI and large language models. We've heard a lot about that through the show. But we also need to think differently. And if we think back to Einstein, one of the things he said, which was absolutely spot on, is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So we're going to have to think differently, and we're going to have to think end to end for the customer. So that's enough from me. I'll now hand over to Anne, who's going to talk you through a few more slides on getting into that in a little bit more detail, and then we'll talk to our panelists to get into some conversations as to how are they addressing some of these challenges. Anne.
Thank you, Simon. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper on the how, on how airlines should actually achieve this change. First of all, as Simon said, they should commit to purpose, not just social purpose, but also environmental purpose. Secondly, airlines should really become digital platforms that are tech-driven, data-driven, and that enable personalization, but also agility and operational efficiencies. And last but not least, airlines should move to mindful and conscious consumerism models and really make their customers understand it through transparent, clear, and accurate communication. The next point, which is, of course, which I'm carrying very close to my heart, how can we bring this new customer expectations in flight? Of course, the whole cabin environment is important, but also the product and service. We need to look at what are the new onboard trends, and we see things coming up and growing like pre-order, a la carte dining, the use of socially responsible products, locally sourced ingredients, but also a move from multi-course meals to bowl food. And last but not least, of course, the human element, the service and hospitality is still absolutely key. I think flight attendants are the face of your company. They are the ambassador of your brand, and they can make or break the experience. Then the next step is digitization. So airlines really need to commit to becoming digital platforms so that they can enable hyper-personalization, also using AI and large language models, which in fact is already quite frequently used, but it's available in back-end as well as front-end with initiatives like fleet optimization, customer service, predictive analytics, but also luggage tracking, fleet management, etc. And one example that I think we've seen also this morning in Vimal's presentation is Sama, which is a digital human cabin flight attendant that was launched by Qatar Airways, and that is really enabling this personal effect through combining digital and human in a holographic display on board. And then, of course, sustainability. It's not a nice to have. It should be embedded in everything we do, and the new generation is absolutely keen on only engaging companies that have a clear commitment to social and environmental sustainability. So we need to bring it on, make it happen, make it part of our product offering, and be responsible in what we do. So before moving into the questions, I think the conclusion of our presentation, Simon, is that, okay, airlines, become digital, make sure you have a fantastic platform that enables your customers to know what's going on, but also to manage their own journey personally. Then the human element, service, hospitality, make sure that your flight attendants are proud to be part of your company. And then last but not least, embrace sustainability. So, Louise, I have a question for you. My first question is, how has your approach to product development at Riyadh Air changed to accommodate this new customer behavior?
Yeah, and I think we've got a really golden opportunity with Riadea. We're building a brand new airline from the ground up, and so a lot of our guests these days have a good deal of digital literacy, and they have expectations for instant gratification and hyper personalisation, and so we have that opportunity to become a really digital native airline, delivering to our guest needs in a number of new ways using digital platforms. Another one for us, a key pillar of the brand, is around sustainability. And so guests are really increasingly aware of sustainability. They're making conscious choices towards more sustainable options. And so with all of the new experiences and products that we're developing, it's really important for us to have that, sustainable integrity to make sure that we're not greenwashing anything. Guests are so educated in this area and they just won't stand for it. So we need to just put that through that lens with everything that we do.
Great, thank you. And Amy, how about British Airways? Do you agree with what Louise said, or are things slightly different at an existing full-service carrier?
I agree, but I guess we have a 105-year history, so turning the big ship that is BA is probably a bit more challenging. But what we're finding with this growth in premium leisure is that, I guess first and foremost, we're finding that, for example, our assumptions around customers dwelling in the lounge is a lot different now. So instead of 7 minutes, they're spending 10 minutes in there and they're eating and consuming everything. So that puts pressure on budgets. So there's a real practical consideration there. For our British Airways customers, we know that our recent insight is that they want British signatures. They want to know where their food and drink comes from. So the provenance stories, and Chef Mark is going to be developing those sorts of things, really help us to deliver on that. I guess overall, what we need to ensure is that we've got agility in our thinking, that we're testing and learning, and then pivoting if that doesn't work out. So many similar challenges. I think we just meet them probably in a different way.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy. And Louise, given that Riyadh Air is starting from scratch, how are you addressing this new customer behavior in your development plans?
Yeah, I think that, to my earlier point, it's really having that deep understanding of who your customer is, the demographic that you're serving, making sure that any experiences that you develop are really, really targeted towards delivering that unique customer value that your demographic has.
Okay. And do you find it hard to define your demographic if the airline is not yet live?
So maybe a little bit challenging, but we have a good idea of where we're going to be flying to, and we have done a lot of very initial investigations into who our guests are, what the demographic is. It's quite a unique demographic in Saudi Arabia as it is. 2/3 of the population in Saudi is under 29. And so that's quite a unique demographic to design for. So in my previous airline, it was very much an older leisure market, and this will be very much a younger, more family-oriented mix of business and leisure. And also bringing people to the kingdom as well, so it would be more your leisure traveller there.
That's really exciting, and I think that what we presented before is relevant: digital, human, and sustainability.
So maybe, Luke, if I can turn the mic to you.
Hello.
Hello. Question for you. Talk to me about innovation and how, from a slightly different perspective, you can see innovation coming to play and how it should come to the forefront.
Sure. So I think for us, because we work across categories, what we're noticing is actually physical product, the environment is going into parity. So generally, year on year, the changes that you see on seating, etc., kind of is nudging in one direction, but generally it becomes sort of standardized. So I think it's very similar to consumer technology, where everything comes screen-based, it comes thinner. Electric vehicles, they all kind of sound the same. So for us, what we're interested in is how do you start to build what we call a composite signature experience, and that's really where airlines can start to wield scent, sound, taste, F&B, service in a much more orchestrated, holistic way. So if we talk a lot about the analogy of kind of a beautifully crafted piece of music, and you can bear with this one, but the idea of, tempo, pace, crescendos at the right moment, quiet at the right moment is how we consider the kind of end-to-end experience. So for us, I think that the trick is going to be, how do you use all of these multiple facets to tailor an experience which resonates deeply with your customer set, and then how do you make that resonant with the brand? So for us, that's kind of the game now. It's more about the synchronicity across all of these different facets. And actually, it's a very exciting space, because if you think about that, the brand becomes a sort of the orchestra of the emotional experience for the passenger. So that's kind of what we're seeing: parity in product, and then the experience and the moments you craft being multifaceted and tailored much more specifically.
Thank you for that. So maybe Louise, how does that resonate in terms of the way that Riyadh Air, as a new start, is actually approaching innovation and thinking differently?
I think in terms of innovation, I've had the incredible privilege in my previous role with Air New Zealand to be involved in a number of really exciting innovations, the most recent of which was the Skynest, which was the economy bunks proposition. So probably I can talk more from that lens. And innovation in aviation is actually, it's really, really difficult. There are so many stringent rules or interpretations on regulatory environments, certification challenges and things like that. And so a lot of times you'll have something that's really desirable to the guests. There's a lot of really great ideas out there. However, they're not operationally feasible, or they're not commercially viable. So I think whenever you're developing an experience, it's really important to, at the earliest moment possible in the development journey, is to put it through all of those three lenses of that design triangle of desirable, viable, feasible, to understand that whether you've got something that's actually going to be something that's going to make it on board. Every now and then you have, your balanced breakthroughs, and then you can turn something from a concept into reality. And, but that's very, very rare. And there's been so many great ideas that just haven't been able to fulfill that one thing. You can't make them make money, or... So, yeah, it's a difficult challenge.
Cool. And Amy, is it different with a 105-year history behind you?
Probably not, although I guess the inputs that we have into that are many and varied. So we will look at research and insight. What are our customers telling us? We have a innovation team across the IAG group called Hangar 51, which is an accelerator program that gives us ideas. We'll take that into developing the experience, but we'll also tap on our colleagues across the business. We have 14,000 people flying in the air that will also say, hey, that's going to work or that's not going to work. So taking those inputs into the design experience helps us to be innovative and stay innovative. And also, I guess, to my earlier points, you put something out there in the customer experience, and there's this moment, and it's quite a sweet spot in terms of having enough confidence that it's the right thing, because usually right away you get lots of noise, oh, that's not going to work, or huge, yes, that's fantastic. But if you don't judge that just right and either continue or, as I say, pivot away, you might kind of lose a huge investment. So that's, I think, is where the trick is to getting it right.
No, that's really cool. And maybe, Luke, a follow-up. With your background outside the airlines and with a sort of technology focus, do you see, we've heard a lot this week, last few days, around AI, large language models, etc. Do you see a role for technology in helping with this?
Yeah, I do. I think actually there's a moment when, before technology, I think aviation should start to look outside of the boundaries of the sector. So it should start to look towards, automotive, banking, hospitality more broadly. So I think when we talk about the travel ribbon, we describe the travel ribbon as specific within the aviation space or within the carrier space. So I think there's lots to be learned around what are those adjacent experiences that might have a ripple effect. Where is the expectation of consumers and how that impact what carriers are doing? I think as well, again, in terms of technology, there's one thing I think very important is often I think innovation, it doesn't fail because of lack of money all the time. It actually fails because the vision isn't strong enough and people aren't on side within the business. So with all of our work, and it goes across category, you often see the successes are where there's a very, very strong North Star and everyone within the company kind of knows where they're going and it's very collegiate. So I think that before technology is probably the sort of primo quality, to be brave and to understand that silos are the death of innovation, really. So if you can break those down, all the better.
Absolutely. And Amy, how is technology playing a part in British Airways?
We're investing quite a lot in technology across BA. So we've got £100 million worth of investment in machine learning and optimization and AI. I guess the trick is how we create this benign and safe environment when you're talking about AI and embracing the possibility. So I think that gives us great organizational challenges in terms of creating this mindset, reskilling our people, how you undertake change management in a way that people, I guess to Luke's point, embrace and understand the vision. But I mean, we're right in the middle of doing all of our business planning right now. One way of embedding it is you put it in that business plan, and that has a way of focusing that there are going to be certain benefits that you achieve through technology, and whether it's in operational excellence or efficiency or reduce wastage, tons of opportunity, and I think we're only scratching the surface.
Absolutely. Louise, do you see a role that's different for that in regards to technology?
No, to be honest, I think AI is a fantastic tool, and it's one of the tools in your toolbox when you're putting together and developing experiences. It's come a long way in the last couple of years, and the growth and sophistication is just growing exponentially. However, I think it's important not to diminish the human touch points as well, and the human and the emotional elements around the experiences that you're developing, and the reasons and the why behind it. I find AI particularly useful when I am developing things like user stories and creating visualizations of experiences and things like that. But yeah, it definitely still has its little quirks and its flaws. But I think it's all about finding that right balance between the digital and the physical touch points as well.
Thank you. Anne.
So, Amy, last question. We discussed how customer behavior has changed and the new organization should adapt. What has been your key learning up to this point, or if you prefer, what is your priority?
I think key learning is something I've already said in terms of try things out, execute really well. You have to have relentless focus on great execution. And then if it doesn't work, pivot away and kind of don't be afraid to do that. And sometimes I think maybe we just get stuck with implementing something that maybe hasn't worked, and it doesn't feel necessarily always the right thing to say, actually, we tried that and didn't work. So for me, that's, I think, the biggest learning.
Okay. Thank you. Louise?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Amy there. For me, it's about having a really deep understanding of actually what problem you're trying to solve, or actually if there is a problem to solve. So to that point, I think building in guest research, guest testing all the way through your development project, so you've got those consistent check-ins to make sure that what you're developing your guest understands and will buy into and will value. An example of that is previously developing culinary experiences. Often you'll have your guests saying, when you're doing the guest research, look, I just want to be really healthy when I'm bored, and I just want to eat salad. That's it, just salad and just really healthy stuff. And so that actually translates to like a pie or pizza, and that pesky salad ends up being the lonely little thing on the shelf that nobody wants at the end. And so if you can make sure you're doing some physical testing, either on the ground or in-flight testing, before you go full noise with actually implementing something that is going to take months to back out of.
Thank you. That's great. And then, Luke, also last question for you. So how do you, in your role serving airlines, how do you find that the new customer behavior is impacting the work that you do for your customers?
Yeah, so on the AI piece, we're actually developing a proprietary tool. It's called Aura. It allows you to basically simulate an experience before you go ahead and deliver it. So I think for us, that allows us to get under the skin of customers in a very different way and understand really what resonates. It allows strategic effort at the front end to be not wasted. So you can simulate something, test it before you commit. I think the one thing I would say is, and I think it's a standard thing, is that people buy into people. And I think that's never going to change personally. So I think technology can augment a human interaction or augment the journey, the experience. But I think we need to be careful that it doesn't become a kind of silver bullet. For me personally, the things that make or break a journey are generally the product's fine. It's either like time of the flight, the food, or the people I'm having a conversation with. So I think those are primo and will remain. So yeah, for us, I think that's just kind of standard issue, and it's how technology can be embedded and support that rather than trying to take over.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everyone, and we'd like to open it up to the audience if there's any question for our panelists today.
Maybe I'll ask one just to get you going, and that is really around sustainability, and how do you think sustainability challenges should be built in? We heard yesterday from the ASF just how much waste this industry creates. Do you have any thoughts on how thinking differently can help us tackle some of those challenges?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about the idea of lightweight, and actually lightweight has two sides to it. One is how can you remove weight on board to reduce fuel burn? Then there's the bit around how can you make a product, for example, more recyclable, easy to disassemble. But I think lightweight also speaks to how people in the future are going to be interacting with the environment. So the idea of reducing friction, making me, don't make me think basically when I enter a space. So can products and environments start to respond more broadly to me as an individual? So I think in terms of sustainability, I also believe that AI is well placed to help with that particular task, because actually it's lots of mathematical crunching, and again stimulation is a really lovely space to look at circularity and how you might be able to implement something more broadly within the operation.
All right.
I think one of the things that helps a business to deliver on sustainability goals is, again, to have sustainability completely embedded into the line area, into the operation, into your planning cycle, and not something that sits alone. Now, obviously, there's organizational challenges in terms of where a sustainability team sits, but both the aim, intent, vision, and outcomes need to be fully immersed in your business planning cycle if we're really going to achieve the kind of very huge challenges this industry has.
Yeah, I think sustainability is a really tricky one because, we're always taught that, weight is the most important thing and make everything lighter weight. But when it comes to something like you're developing serviceware and economy, it could potentially be better to go from a sustainability perspective to go with a rotable product if you can get enough rotations out of it over a really lightweight single-use product. And, often it's always a trade-off with sustainability. It's not a cheaper option, and also it's really around guest expectations as well. So it's trying to change the behaviour or influence the behaviour of your guests and make them understand the why behind what you're doing and how you're doing things. Like, for example, from my perspective, amenity kits and economy, I just find that incredibly wasteful. unless you can implement a recycling or reuse program within your cabin, then I just find that actually really irresponsible these days to be giving every single seat or every single person an amenity kit. They're probably going to open it and use maybe one or two things, if that, from the amenity kit, and then the rest of it is just wasted and it goes into landfill. So it's about sort of trying to influence that customer behaviour and get them to understand the why behind anything new that you're developing that will have an impact on sustainability, but be not quite potentially what they would expect to receive.
Understood. Yeah.
Yes, and I'd like to add on to that, Simon. I think in terms of sustainability, digitization also has a huge impact. You can use AI, for example, to have digital consumption tracking of what the meal tray that comes off board, what was actually consumed and what not, and better tailor your proposition in the future to the customer needs, but also to reduce waste through, for example, pre-order or different initiatives to digitize the meal service so that you minimize what you actually load on board and minimize waste as well. So I think that coming together of digitization and sustainability is also impactful going forward.
Really good points. Any questions from the audience while we're thinking now? Molly. Good job.
Hi there. You've talked a lot about sustainability and AI, and I think they're both obviously incredibly important topics and sort of very hot topics at the moment. But if we look forward to sort of 10 years' time, what do you think we'll be discussing at WTCE then? Anything different?
Let's start with Luke. Forward thinking.
Hopefully we'll be well progressed. We'll probably still be talking about sustainability and AI to a degree. Sorry, it's slightly contrary, but I think it will progress, but I think we need to be patient. And I think it is a mammoth undertaking, there's no doubt about it. I think there's other spaces as well. We've done some work in hydrogen, for example, hydrogen fuel with Universal Hydrogen, a client some time ago. And so there's other ways, I think, also to impact decarbonising the industry. But I think at the moment it's a kind of, I think it's important to have a kind of now, next, wow view on things. Like we need to land some stuff, start working with it. It's quite nascent, it's quite a new space. So hopefully we'll make good progress, but I'd imagine there will still be topics of discussion around AI and sustainability. It's going to be, circularity, for example, is going to be a real hot topic.
Amy, do you have a view?
I think I would add to Luke's view and say that I think we'll still be talking about what products are value added. Again, a lot of the product right now across the industry is quite commoditized, but I still think the conversation will be about the richness of human interaction and how everything we have around that space, digitization, AI, can contribute to making sure that where you have human interaction, it is as rich and meaningful and as purposeful and personalized as it possibly can.
Just going to throw this one out here. Pilotless flight decks, maybe?
Shock horror.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree with Amy and Luke on this one. Yeah, I think, sustainability is always going to be of increasingly importance as we go. But, maybe we'll be looking more towards the eVTOLs, different sort of modes of transport towards the 10-year plus space, I think.
And do you have a view on that as well?
Yes, of course. No, I think the customer experience will still be really important. I think more as further we go down the line, the more we need to take into account what it is that the customer actually wants and tailor our products and services to their needs. And sustainability will be part of that, whereas digital will be the enabler of that.
Thank you, Molly. Any other questions? I have one closing question then for the panel, and that is, how should we take our colleagues, how do we take our teams with us on this journey so that we can make sure that they are part of it and that they feel proud of what they're doing as well? Maybe Louise, should we start with you?
So for me, any time that you're developing new experiences, new products, it's really important to take all of your internal stakeholders on the journey, keep everyone informed. I have a saying at work, and my colleagues going to laugh, it's called tato tato, which is everyone in together. And so I just feel it's really important. Like, a lot of people are quite protective of their work, but for us, unless there's a really heavy confidentiality or it's super duper secret, I'll always try to engage as many internal stakeholders from across the business as possible, because it's when you get those divergent thoughts and ideas is that when you get the best sort of breakthroughs, and you create the best product, because you've got so many different points of view. That's when you end up with something that's going to be enduring and be able to be implemented.
Similarly, it's looking for opportunities to involve all of your colleagues in developing products and services. It's quite a careful balance, because you can be in danger of designing things by committee, and we have certain people who have responsibility, accountability, and the budget to design that. But getting that input at an early stage is really important. And we haven't got that cracked yet. We keep trying different ways, but really important to do is just finding the right way that our colleagues feel heard, that their voices, opinions, and experience in looking after our customers are taken into account.
Thank you. Luke, do you have a last word on that?
Yeah, so I think I go back to I think having very, very brave vision is critical, so that everyone within the business, within the organization, can get behind where we're all going. I think you're totally right. You've got to co-author things, but be careful that it doesn't become completely diluted. And then I think it's about, culture building from the inside, and then also, to be honest, probably good, strong C-suite mandate never goes amiss. So I think having everyone moving in the right direction with a little bit of a push from the upper echelons is always powerful.
Oh, excellent. Good. Well, thank you all very much indeed. Thank you, audience, for being with us. Anne, founder of In-Air Travel Experience, thank you very much, despite the broken foot, for making it to Hamburg to join us. Louise, Amy, Luke, really appreciate you joining us on stage. We have heard about the need for a clear North Star, clear C-suite engagement, fail fast, engage the teams, try new things, think differently, try and think end-to-end, build in sustainability so it becomes a way of life and not just a bolt-on, and a whole load of other things. So some things perhaps for you to think of as you go back into further meetings today and tomorrow. So really appreciate your time. Thank you, panel.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.